In today's video we're going to talk about mythology, and we're not just going to talk about mythology, but we're going to talk about how mythology can affect your life. We're going to talk about what is mythology, how is it done in the West and how it is done in China, and how can mythology be weaved into your life and how you can improve the quality of your life. And of course I relate this also at the same time to our research project, our IOC Daoland Research project, where I of course still hope that you are going to sign up for if you haven't yet. If you are only a viewer and you want to give me a like, I will be very happy with that too. If you want to sponsor, become a Patreon, or you want to join any of the live classes or one of the more professional classes for becoming a I Ching counselor or a Chinese medicine practitioner or both of them, or a Yangshan practitioner, then of course great, wonderful. I look forward to hear what you think of this movie, and please watch it to the end to see what is going to be there for you. I know a lot of you are watching, but it would be really interesting to me to hear what you are thinking, to hear what you think about these kind of subjects, because of my PhD research I'm moving more towards these kind of themes because they keep me awake at night, and they keep me awake because of the future of my children and of the future of the children of my friends, my family. And not only here in the Netherlands where I am at, but also in the United States, in Mexico, in Canada, in China, in Vietnam, in Korea, in Russia even, and also in the Philippines and in several African and South American countries, and Australia, not to forget. Indonesia. I forget a lot of countries where I know people. If this shining world one day would collapse, whether it is because of war, because of famine, because of climate change, because of economic ruin, it doesn't really matter what way, but what are we going to do? I think in general people will survive. There will be a separation between the haves and the have-nots, the rich and the poor, so to say. And the rich will probably surround themselves with automation to make sure that they can get everything they want. The poor are going to be living in the remnants, maybe in a sort of trickle-down economy, worse than the current one. The rich ones will probably get to live in a cashless society, because these rich will probably live in a cashless society just simply because, well, if they already have anything, they don't need any money, right? So they can probably own spaceships, villas, luxury cars, flying cars, helicopters, and staff to manage, scientists to develop the things that they would like to have, AI, robots, anything they want. While the poor, they're living out there, probably outside walled cities, where the wealthy will live, and they will try to get by, probably through a form of bartering. The reason why the people got there is because, well, automatization. Automatization will leave a lot of people unemployed, and if a country doesn't have money to take care of them, you get another kind of cashless society, namely one that lives on handouts. Then there is also climate change, which will force people out of their homes and to become refugees, one kind or another. Because of resources, countries will start wars, and these wars, they can, well, displace people a lot also, and also ruin the comfort of lives that people have. It will be clear, of course, that the people who are left are going to be survivors. The rich people will eventually get extinct, isolated in their wealth, and as a result that the future is with people like you and me. By the way, if you like some tea, I made some tea for us for this conversation. Don't drink everything at once. It is the people like you and me that are the future of civilization. When we are getting frustrated about the fact that everything has been taken from us, the world as we knew, as we raised in, will be taken from us, is going to be disaster. So the only thing that we can do is to try to prepare for it, so that we do not end up with resentment, so that we create the worst version of what we currently have, but that we are developing a real civilization where our children can grow up in, and where our children can develop further what we actually initiate. The Daoland Research program that I'm making, is actually based on that principle. So the idea is that now we prepare for future events, and if these future events do not happen, then still we can have an influence on this effect. You know the story about the Buddha who moved the wheel of karma. He did some things, he did teach some people, and these people, they have become the current state of Buddhism in the world, which is not a small influence, it's actually a pretty large influence. Similar for Daoism, Lao Tzu wrote a book. There were other people in his culture that were saying things, and because of the book that he wrote, even that he archaeologically seen, didn't write the book himself, but other people collected it from all kinds of sayings and wrote this book. He eventually became deified because of that book, and as a result of that, he became an educator, and he changed Chinese culture, and currently we're in the process of also changing all other cultures in the world because of the influence Daoism has. In effect, Daoism in the form of Wu Wei already, in effect, Daoism in the form of Wu Wei already has an influence on current economic politics. One of the things that people need when they start a new society is a good motivation, and a good motivation comes in the form of a story. At the moment when you are creating a story about your future, you actually write a story about your past. And the origin of the stories of a society are its myths. And myths are very interesting things. Our culture, our Western culture, also current Chinese culture, they're based on myths. This is not about truth or false. This is basically about ideology. So at the moment when you talk about a myth, you say like, this is where we come from, this is where we want to go to. So a myth is sort of like a worldview. The origin of the word myth, mythology, in that sense, myth is from the idea of stories, of gossip even. In Chinese, the word for myth, which is usually translated as myth, is shenhua, which means something like aware dialect or aware speak. So this is not too far away from that. Sometimes it is also translated as divine speak. So there the shun is being explained in its higher level of explanation, while I use it here primarily in the regular way of use of the word shenhua, where the word hua actually is a dialect, like Shanghai Hua, Beijing Hua, not as language, but as a particular way of saying things. Western mythology, moreover, is very straightforward. There is a beginning, which is absolutely clear, and there is a development of a story, and what needs to be done is absolutely clear. There is this beginning in Islam, in Christianity, and all other Semitic religions, where the creator created reality from nothing, and from that nothing came the whole world, you know, like the Big Bang Theory in science. At the moment when you are looking at this theoretical framework, then you can say, okay, so this creator started things, and what happened then? In general, this divinity put itself in the center, and creation is revolving around that divinity, and you need to worship that divinity. In Chinese culture, that is actually not the same. Religion is not as big as it was in the West, or in the West, which includes the Middle East. But it is more fragmented, and it is more diffuse, and it is more variable, you can say. We can clearly see that there is no clear beginning in Taoist myth. No matter what kind of myth you are using, there is no real clear beginning. There is no divinity that stands at the center, and there is worship of the divinity necessary to keep that worship going. In Daoism there are different kind of myths, and these myths, which are at the core of Chinese mythology, I like to usually mention the myth of Pangu. Pangu is the world egg, and for his birthday other gods, they think, okay, what can we give him for his birthday? He doesn't have any appreciation of reality. That means there's a reality where the gods live, and Pangu is just an egg. And that's the Dan, by the way, the Dan in the Dantian. And at the moment when they decide what to do for his birthday, they decide to pick holes in his face so that he can see, hear, smell, taste, and so forth and so forth. As a result of this stabbing holes in him, he dies, just like what human beings would do. We would also die if you stab holes in us. And as a result of that, the world is being created. So that means that basically the world as it is the result of a corpse. We are living inside a corpse, and that corpse gives new life. That is our life. It's different from the original egg-shaped life, but it is our life, and our world is that realm, everything that fits within that corpse. So you could say planet Earth, that's the leftovers of Pangu, and on the outside it's rotting, and this rotting process are trees and plants and mushrooms and fungi and all kind of other creatures that grow there, and all kind of creatures that crawl in between, like the insects, the mice, the elephants, and us. At the moment when you look at that myth, you can really see that there is always something before and there's always something after, and there is in this mythology a lot of space for after creation, so to say. So in this Taoist myth, over time, when the Taoist religion, which we now call religion, but in the past would be called science, came about, they started thinking about the things that they see in heaven and on the earth and inside the earth, and gradually there came this idea of beings living on the stars. It mentions the beings around us, and also the beings underneath where we go to when we die, because we also die and become corpses, and we give new birth to other living beings. And they live in the realm of our body. Our body also is like Pangu, an egg which, if we die, starts leaking and starts rotting. And there are other myths I frequently mention, like for instance, because of the course in the I Ching Counselor, there is this myth about the creation of the world from chaos, right? That's very different from Hundun, because Hundun was clear. And this myth of chaos, Hundun, was a chaos which was not disorder, but it wasn't order too. There was no things and there were no things. There was no movement, there was no activity, there was no activity. And from that chaos came about a Yuan-Chi, and this Yuan-Chi split off in yin and yang, heaven, earth, and the water realm in between. Eventually that is the realm where we live, and so forth and so forth. In this reality there is this creation of order from chaos. And this is where the difference lies with the Pangu myth, but also the difference with the Semitic myths. Because in the Semitic myths, the creator creates the world, but the only order is regulated by worshipping that creator, and that is where the order is. Everything outside which goes its own way is seen as disorder, and that does exist. Within Chinese culture itself, there is this idea, like it's being translated, like it's being explained in the classic of the Mountains and the Sea. There is this idea of the civilization, that's the city-state basically, and then there is the disorder around it, which is called wilderness. Wilderness is there where civilization stops and everything goes outside. It is already at the countryside, and what is outside there is the land of the barbarians. Wilderness is the countryside. When we look at this kind of mythology in Chinese culture, you see there's a lot of space for after creation, and this after creation comes in many kind of ways. Like the three pure ones, who are involved one way or the other in the creation of the world of reality, and are being represented within us, and they are being represented as divinities of earth, water and heaven. There is Siwa Mu, who as Grandmother West is regulating the death of people. Therefore the West of course is associated with death, but it also is the protector of immortals, so it guides you through death, maybe to your new birth or towards the underworld, but it basically is there, Siwa Mu is there to help you step over death and to become an immortal. It is part of the mythology of Chinese culture. And there's many other ones like Shannon in self-cultivation, who is the founder of food medicine. And there is somebody like you who regulated the light and the warmth and the cold of the world, so that we would not get burned all the time, like in the story of the three-body problem, where the world is continuously being destroyed because of its irregular, chaotic nature. And there are many different kind of heroes in Chinese culture which are also co-creators of that reality, like Huangdi, who people who study Chinese medicine know as the one who asked all kinds of questions about medicine. But the thing is, he was a warrior, he was a conqueror, and he studied medicine to take care of his people, the people that he conquered, as well as the people who he was conquering for. There is also somebody like Sun Miao, who was actually a medicine practitioner and a cultivator, and he got a really deep understanding about where we go off the rails and become sick, and he developed a form of cultivation in which medicine played a role, and which is very closely related also to what we do in the Daoland Bachelor and Master program. He became divinized, and now he is the god of medicine. So you see, the creation of gods is still happening. Zhang Xiangfen from the Xuanwu Pai guild in Taoist culture, Wudang Taoist culture, also in a similar kind of fashion, because of his deep understanding of cultivation, the relationship between movement, exercise, and meditation, and medication, and treating disease, and the morality of a person, and how all these kind of things, they come together, and how they eventually create a more ideal society as a whole. He became divinized, so now as the patriarch of the Xuanwu Pai, he is like a half deity, you can say, subservient only to Zhen Wu, who himself is an emanation of Xuanwu, and who as such also is a representative child replacement for the Jade Emperor, who is at this moment ruling the order of the universe. In our research, we are trying to help create seeds for building new civilization or improving this civilization. So this is really like an activist kind of research where you can become part of. And of course, I'm going to explain you a little bit about how that works within that totality, because when you look at the program, there are 3 arts in there. There's meditation, and there is food medicine in there, and there's exercise in there. And if you look at the history of Chinese culture, you can see that, for instance, Lao Tzu and even the Buddha and Confucius, they were important for learning to become aware of things. And when you learn to meditate, you learn to become aware of things, not just about what's happening inside of you, but actually you want to become aware of everything, and you want to understand the relationships between things. This is a very important part of meditation. This is not about de-stressing yourself, but it's about coming to understand things. So when you read a book, you're actually meditating. And at the moment when you meditate, don't forget your tea, okay? When you meditate, you gradually start having more understanding. So for Daoism, being a scholar and a meditator is very important. So this is an aspect of what is going to be in the research, of course. And the food medicine represented by the god Shannon, who was actually teaching people which foods you could eat and how they would improve your life, and which foods would be harmful to your life under what circumstances and so on. These kind of things also are part of that, because when you know what to eat, when you become displaced and there's no more money for food or anything like that, then at that moment you can find food in the plants that you can feel out there in nature. At the moment when you see all these plants, you can recognize which ones you can eat. And there is a lot of food that you can eat out there for which you don't have to go to supermarket. So unless when the whole world becomes plant-free, there will always be food for you. At the moment, when you look at the exercise program, this is basically the Huang Di program, where you are learning that exercise is your only form of self-cultivation, where you can develop your morality as well as your mobility, and through which you can learn a lot about how to prevent that you get all kinds of diseases. When you are healthy and you get an infection, you heal better. When you are mobile, then when you fall, you won't break so quickly something, but also your joints will not infect so quickly, you don't get stress in your body that quickly, all kind of different kind of factors which are playing a role. Yali, stress, is basically what causes disease, because it forces us to be distracted from the things that are actually important to us, and as a result of this distraction we make wrong choices and we try to drown it away by playing games, or by drinking, or drugs, or by getting really very excited and losing the rationality of existence. These are important things. The other thing is that when you look at your own life, this is why you're here, you are a bunch of stories. And the stories of these myths in the past, they are the past of Chinese culture, and we can use them, we can take them as an example, but it's not exactly the same. But in your own life you have a lot of stories too. If you look at the story of your life, how do you see it now? Is it just a linear line with all kinds of events that you only half remember? Or is it really a story? So at the moment when you look at yourself and you think about, what am I going to do with this program from this idiot? Maybe I want to partake, maybe not. Because I think maybe it is going to be helpful to learn these skills so that I can hold them in my hand and I can share them with my family and I can share them with my friends. And if anything bad ever happens, I'm already prepared. The story of your life is revolving around these three things. Your awareness, your understanding of how to get food and what food does to you, and about how you're able to move and prevent damage. So, as a result of that, I would like you to go look at your life and see if you can find these three things back into your life. Do you see in your life things where you are curious, where you are liking and enjoying study, where you try to become more understanding about the things around you, not just in a superficial way, but in all its complications? Because this is what meditation is about. Meditation is about creating a nucleus from where you can learn to regulate yourself, but it is also about the awareness of your life as a whole, what is happening inside it. Then the food medicine, how do you eat, right? Do you need to learn how to eat properly? Is that based on calories and vitamins and minerals, or is that based on understanding what food actually does with you? If you are curious about these things, there are already seeds for both of these things inside your life, and also about exercise. Did you like gymnastics in class? Do you like sports? Do you enjoy being addicted to your sports, or do you like to move? Do you have aversion for movement because you don't want to get tired from your exercises? All these kind of things, they create red threads moving through your life. And I want you to look for these three threads, and it's best to take for each of these threads A4 and just write down with your hand or with a pencil or whatever kind of thing, and just write down the story of that skill inside your life, and then try to see how they intertwine with each other. I'm pretty sure for most of you, the research project where you're going to be research assistant and participant, you're going to be subject from that what is going to be researched, and you're going to be learning a lot of things in there. Then that program, with all its cheapness, affordability, in a very low price, meant for poor people, not for rich people, although you're welcome if you're rich, of course. You can always pay more if you want. But at the moment when you are looking into these things, you are going to weave all these things together and create a new red line, namely where all these skills are going to help you to improve your own life, but also the life of the people around you, where you can share this with, and that you can learn to share this with in your life. So yes, this is actually what this story is about, and I hope to hear from you if you actually did this practice, which I sincerely hope. And if you think like, well, actually this makes more sense for me than I thought, because when you do these kind of things, the red line in your life is not going to be just a bunch of memories, but it is going to become a story, a real story, not just a egalitarian story, but it becomes a romantic story, it becomes an adventure story, it becomes a political story, it becomes an economic story, and it becomes an emotional story at the same time. You could make a movie about your life when you have the right red lines, the right red threads, binding everything together. So let me know how you're doing. If you want me to judge your story, if it's a really good story, I'm eager to do so. If you want to be part of this project, of course, that would even be better. If you just want to sponsor it and support it, this is also fine. I will be pleased.